if it happens. All right, we're back. Happy times. We are COMP305. That's Game Programming 1 in the fall 2017 semester, and we're week 5, part 2 of our broadcast. Now we're going to be talking about Unity UI. So up until now, we've had a collision system that we built by hook or by crook. Let me just bring up Unity again. And I mean that is in like just 2 ways you can do the collisions. And I have the up online, up on GitHub. You'll have both different ways of doing it, right? So one of the ways, again, is with code. We talked about that. I showed you how to do that. Like pure code, no collision, no other components on the Unity game objects. And the other way is a component-based approach that Unity provides, which is much simpler, but also takes some of the intelligence out of how the collisions work and how collision response works. 2 different ways, right? So let's think about this now. We've got collisions, but I got no way of creating any kind of user interface. So what I want to do is, in my game, and I want to just show the actual thing here. What I want to do is, here's my scene. And at the top left corner, I want to have some kind of score, let's say, or lives. And then the right corner, I want to have some score. So every time I get hit, I want to show it. Every time I get a point, I show that too. Okay? That's what I want to do, these 2 things. So the way to do that, of course, is to go back into Create, and we can see that there is some options for UI. I can create some text. So obviously this is what I want. I want a text, right? And let's put that in. Here's a text, piece of text. And notice that there's a canvas, but it's offset from my screen. So my screen and the canvas look totally different. What does it look like in the game? Well, it looks like it's down here, right? But meanwhile, it's up here. How come? How come my canvas is over here, but my screen is over here, and this text over here appears down here somewhere? Well, because this is a user interface canvas that has nothing to do necessarily, right? What's actually happening is this is the overlay, an overlay on top of my screen. So this is representative of an overlay. Now I can't move it off here. I could if I wanted to push it over on the side, but this. Notice it immediately brings in a couple things. One, something called a canvas, and next the text. We should rename the text because I want to make 2 pieces of text. One of them is going to be called score, and they're going to be called labels, right? And I also can't see a damn thing about it, right? So let's do a couple things. So one is I'm going to call this the score label. All right, here's my score label. And my score label, before I change the position, I'm going to change some things. I'm going to make my font size 20 for now. Oops, 20. There we go. And I want to change my color so I can see it on the blue background. So yellow, there it is. And now if you look at the game, it kind of looks like this. Here's my new text. You can see it floating, right? So here is just representation of where it's going to be. Wouldn't it be nice if this canvas was like, you know, off the screen somewhere? By the way, there's 2 types of canvases. My render mode right now is something called screen space overlay. Screen space overlay. If I go pixel perfect, which is what I want to do, that'll help me, right? Because it'll give me a, you know, I am using pixel perfect. Sort order, I can put that target display is display 1. I can have multiple displays. This is my canvas scaler. There's also a graphic raycaster. A couple things I'm going to do because my canvas is just an overlay. Now here's the other one. Screen space camera. Screen case, and then I can render on the camera objects. If I click the main camera and drag it over, now my screen space is gone and I can't see anything. Right now, if I go back to my game, I see nothing, right? Because I've changed the screen space camera. And if I go back to the camera, you can see that I don't see anything there either. Right? There's the cameras we're looking at. Now my canvas itself, where's the canvas? It's right here, right? Here's my object. But where's my score label? It's right here. And why is this like this? Because it's different layers, right? So let's go back to my canvas object. and my order and layer is 0. This is why this is better for us, because we're using pixel perfect, right? And we've already established this. So this is going to be way higher up in the order, right? Like we're talking above everything else. So where would I want to put this? Well, probably something like 100, like way up there, like 100, right? Now this makes more sense. I can actually see what it's looking like, and it's directly on my game, right? It's on my camera, not on my, not in some canvas that's far away. And what I want to do with the score label, it has a transform, but it's a different transform. Even though everything's a game object in Unity, what we see here is that in the Unity engine, we have a Rect Transform instead of a transform, because the rectangular object here is what I'm looking at. Now, if I click in here on this target, like right in here, what it allows us to do is tell me where it should be positioned. So if I have different size screens, I may want to anchor it, as an example, on the top left corner. So this is what I'm going to do first. So my top left corner is the reference point, right, for this new text. Now, to make it easy, I'm going to use I'm going to align this, because my score label, like I said, is going to be on the right side of my screen somewhere. So I'm going to kind of pull it up, just like normal. This overlaying on top. This has nothing, no effect on collisions or anything like that. Although I could make it do that if I really wanted to. And I can pull it over. Here's my label. And then I can change the label to score. Here's my score. And then I should have some kind of test number in there, like 999999, some big test number. I can see that this would fit. And then in the game, it'll look like this. I don't know if that's big enough. I think I want to make this 40. So how do I do that? Again, looking at the score value, I can change the font size, but then you won't see a damn thing. Why is that? Because there is a scale and there's anchors, and here's the height and width. Now, if I made it 40, this should probably be around 50. And if I do score that's that big, I'm saying 40 might be too big, because score is massive now. Score, right? So let's resize that again. So let's make this something like 30. That's more like it. It's 30, which means my height should be something like 40. And now my width should be larger, because if I look at my width, it's not quite enough to carry my 9999, right? So I can make my width. I can actually go here and change my width. Here's my width. It's whatever value I want. Still not big enough for my score. Let's keep going. Right, there it is. Until I can not see my numbers anymore. There we are. So we know that it's all this is going to fit in there. So I'm going to kind of put my numbers in there so you can see my approximate level of my score. So let's say my score was 9999. You can see that's a good place for it. Now, in my assets that I've given you, I also have something called fonts. And I've given you doc51, right? So inside my text, there is an area that says font, and I can drag and drop this any true type font in here. So your own, so let's say, for example, Vincent has his own font for his game, makes a pixelized font, big pixel font. You can drag and drop that into here. And also now your score is going to look sexier, more like the game score that I want to make it nicer looking. Okay. And I've got most of the things that I want. So that's my score label. I'm going to tag this thing as well. I'm going to create a tag because I know I'm going to probably need it. So I'm going to go in there and add a new tag. I'm going to call this score label with my tag. And then I'm going to go into my score label and tag it as the score label. So that way I can reference to it later. Similarly, I want to make I want to copy duplicate this score label. So I'm going to kind of duplicate it, right? Instead of a score label now, I'm going to call this the life label or lives label. Let's rename it. So lives label. Here's my lives label. Apart. So I'm going to take my lives label, pull it this way. Here it is. I need to make some changes to this thing. Obviously, it's not going to say score. It's going to say lives. And I'll give 5, some number. Don't worry, I'm just putting a number in there right now, but just so that way I can see what it's going to look like. Okay, let's realign this. So my Rect Transform is top left for the lives. You know what? I'm thinking about it again. I probably want the top right for if I want to make my score adjustable to my screen size, then I want to make my score label this one, I want to make it adjustable to the top right corner. So I'm going to go top right up here. That's what's going to be aligned to. So this is top right, the other one's top left. The other thing you can probably do if you really want to, if you actually look at the actual label, you see that there's alignment in here as well. I want to kind of make it center aligned in the middle. And then if I want to, I can kind of make it in the middle of my score label. And the same thing goes with my lives label. I can make this center aligned, middle aligned, as well as middle. Now, middle for my lives label doesn't work because if I did that, then even though how wide it is, it kind of offsets it quite a bit. Let's leave that like this. My score label, though, is the same. I want to kind of make that, I want to kind of make it to the right. So I kind of want to scrunch it to the right side as much as possible. So now you can see that I can probably have room to move this a little bit out from this side because I think it's hugging this part. I want to have the same kind of offset on the right side. So let's move this just a little bit to the right. And I can eyeball it. I'm only eyeballing it right now. I'm not using any numerics, right? If you want to use numeric values, you can. Like, for example, I can look at my lives label, and I can look up here in my Rect Transform. I can see the position is 148 relative to the top left corner of the screen, right? And my Y position is 30, minus 30 over here, right? And my score label, you can see that the Y position is also minus 30, but the X position is 140. So this is 140. And this is 148, and I can't make it come any closer to 140, right? If I made this 140 instead of 148, so if I said negative 148, that's where it would be. So negative 148, and this is 148, just to make it as kind of the same as possible. I'm not sure if I like the top portion too much, but I don't want to give too much room on the top because it'll take up too much of my room. All right, cool. So that's my user interface I made, but guess what? When I run it, it doesn't do anything. So now I got to make it do something. All right, so what do I want to make it do? When I have a collision with my islands, I want my lives label to change and decrease in score. But I also want to keep track of my score somehow, like numerically. And I want to convert. I want to know how my lives are like, you know, when I'm playing the game. And I want to do that inside the game controller object. Now, I could also make a scoreboard if I really wanted to, a separate object that keeps track of everything. But for now, we have a game controller. We'll put it in there. So in my game controller, here it is. I'm going to go into my scripts, right? So I'm going to go back into my scripts right now. And, oh, wait, I forgot to do one thing. My lives, I got to tag that. So new, add tag, right? And I want to do a lives label, just in case I need it. Lives label. Lives label. But in my script, in my game controller script, right? I want to pull up my game controller script again. I want to make references to my two labels, my lives label and my as my my score label. But where do I register my collisions, guys? I register my collisions with my player. Just saying. The cheesy way to do this would be make this all work on the player. So the player keeps track of the score, right? That's the cheesy, easy way to do it, right? But I'd like my game controller to keep track of everything. Because what if I go from one scene to the next, right? What if I'm going to reset my player object over and over again, right? So it might be best to keep track of my score and everything else in a separate container, which is my this object here. So if I was to do that, I need some public fields. And one of the public fields I'm going to need, I'm just going to put them down here, public. I want to make a text object. But in order for me to get access to my text object, I need to add another using option up here. Take a look. So instead of Unity Engine, I'm going to have to use using Unity Engine .ui. Okay, here's my UI. If I don't use UI, then I can't do something like this. Text text type, right? It won't understand what I'm doing there. And I want to make a text, right? A text object that I'm going to call the score label and my lives label. So I'll say score label, right? Text, lives label. Well, those two things, I'm getting a reference to those two things. Now, for me to get the reference, I got to go back to this thing here. And if I look at my game controller, you can see now that I have a couple of spaces in here for score label and lives label. And what am I going to do? I'm going to go to my canvas. I'm going to drag my score label over here and my lives label over here. So now I have direct control from my game controller for these two things. All right. Okay. Now I got to do it this way so it gives you some more. I got to talk some other stuff. So when my score label, right, and my lives label, score label and lives label. Okay, but what I want to do is I want a setter and a getter for my lives label and my score label. So I could make these two things, right? I could make these two things. If I did it, it would disappear. Getters and setters. Or I could make a get and set score label, lives label functionality here. I'll put this down here. So I'll make a new public method that I'm going to make. One of them is called set score. The same thing as making setters and getters, okay? Set score. And I want to set score with a value. So some kind of floating point or numeric value. So int, which would be the score itself, right? So set score. It's gonna return void. It's not gonna return anything, right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say that I want to keep track of my score, but unfortunately I don't have a score variable. So I'm gonna make two fields. I'm gonna hold my variable. So private, I'm gonna call this underscore score, which is gonna be of type integer. I only care about integer scores right now. And a private integer lives, right, which I'm going to set up here. By default, in my start method, I want to set my score to 0 and my lives to 5, let's just say, right? So after I do all this stuff and initialize the clouds, maybe before all this stuff, I'll set my lives and my score. So I'll say this dot score is equal to 0 when I start off the game, and this dot underscore lives is equal to 5. Okay. This is score and lives. All right. So here's my set score. Set score is not going to just set the score of my value, but also going to change the scoreboard, the actual UI. So two things are going to happen. I'm going to say that this dot underscore score is equal to score coming in, right? And this, I want to also set the value of my lives label. So I'll say this dot score label dot text is equal to score, like this. And I want to truncate that with, or I concatenate that with score. And so it's going to take, when I set the score, I'm going to save my score, right? But I'm also going to set the score of my score label, right? So that's set score. I'm also going to set my lives. So public void set lives. Int, I'll say lives, right? And I'll say this dot underscore lives is equal to my lives that are incoming, and this dot lives label, same thing, dot text is equal to lives plus lives. This allows me to set the lives of my objects. These are public methods, right? Set the lives of my score and my lives, my from someplace else. That's what it'll allow me to do. So by default, when I do this, this stuff. Actually, the right thing to do is use my two methods. So let's do that instead. So I'm going to say this dot set score. I've already written this. I'm going to set the score at 0 as a test it, and this dot 5. All right, we can, if this works, we should be able to test this out right now. So I've set the lives and score there in the beginning, and I'm using these two methods I just wrote to do that. So it doesn't just save the score here, but also displays it on the UI. Okay, let's see how this works. Save and run, and it should just be 0 and 5. Right? 0 and 5. We're good to go so far. You see how I did that? Oh, there's a problem here. What do you see the problem is? It's going to kind of grow this way, right? Because I made this label kind of to the right, and it's going to kind of push this label thing out. I think I'm going to make it to the left. It's minor changes, but my score label, my poor score label, I'm going to make it over here. So it kind of stays in this position all the time. So the numbers, whatever they're going to be. Actually, let's undo that. Okay, try that again. So it should be my score. My score should float somewhere up here. Like, give me room to increase my score. And if this is too much, like if I find that the score and the lives value are too big, I could change my width just to make another little change. And I can make my width so that it's less. I don't need so much width. Maybe to there. So 213, let's make that the same as the other one. So let's say we'll make it 215, just make it even. And then we'll move this, we'll just jog this to the right a little bit just so that it takes less room up. And this one here is really long. I'm probably not going to get more than 10 lives, so we can really jog it in. Let's say something like that. And then run this to the left as well. So just give me some more room in the middle. And so when I run this thing again, you can see that it's not bad. I got some score left, but my score and lives float over, and I've set them up. So that game controller is working. Okay, now this is the challenging part. I want to use my get and my set score and my set lives method. I want to set those two things up, right? So when I update them, right, I want to update them from my player object. So that's where the collisions are happening. All right, so if I go to my player controller, on collision enter 2D, I want to get a reference to my game controller, and I can do that up here. So my public boundaries, I can also get a public reference to my game controller, the first thing I want. So I'll say public, this is really cool because it's still an object, and I'll say of type game controller, right? Well, actually, it's, yeah, game controller is equal to, we'll call it game controller. And if I do that, if I go back to my player object now has a reference to it. I'm going to minimize these things so you can see it inside the code, right? Game controller. And I can just drag and drop my game controller in here. So I get a reference now. Now I have a reference to my game controller. And this is awesome because that means I can affect my game controller from my player object and keep those two things separate, right? Cool. Let's go back to my player object for a second. So now that I've got a reference to it, what I want to do is do something like this. I want to say that going on to on collision enter 2D, when I collide with an island, I want to get score, right? So I'm going to say, you know, game controller, lowercase, right? And then dot set score, right? Is whatever the score was, and this is where the challenge is, right? What was the score before? It doesn't allow me to know what the score is. I don't have that function. So what do I need? I get score, right? So I want to increase the score, increment the score, right? Whatever it was. All right, so I don't have that. Let me fix that by going back into my game controller. By the way, there's many different ways to do this. So here's my, we'll call these get and set methods. And then you could also do it different ways with getter and setters, but I prefer to do it this way for now. Get score, right? So it's going to return. That's what this is going to do. This is return an integer. What this is going to do is it's going to return the value of this dot underscore score. Right? That's what it's going to do, right? And the same thing with get lives. Public, we need that too, right? Public return an integer. We're going to say get lives. By the way, this code will work even with when you don't have getters and setters. And we'll return this dot underscore lives, right? So I've set that up too. So I can get and set lives. Yay. Let me go back to my player controller, and you can see now that I can get the score. Whatever the score is, I can get to it and add something to it. So I'll say game controller dot get score, right? Whatever the score is, right? I'm going to take that and I'm going to add 100 points. So I'm getting it here. It's coming in with the value. And whatever it was, I'm going to add 100 to it. Okay? All right, now let's how about lives. It'll be the same, right? So when I lose lives, controller dot set lives, and I'll say game controller dot get score, whatever my score was. Get lives, I'll be all right. Get lives -1. So it's going to remove a life from my player. Okay, cool. Let's try this out. And now we should have some interaction with my user interface with the collision detection system. So I'm playing, and I lost a life and went to 4, but I got some score, right? That's pretty cool. And I got some score. You can see that this is working nicely. I lost a life, right? I got some score. I got some score. I lost a life. I lost a life. Oh man, I lost a few lives. All right, but this is working now, right? So our user interface is working. Hey, let's test this. Let's put it up on GitHub because my user interface works right now. I've accomplished my goal, right, so far, right? I want to put this up on GitHub, and I want to test it to make sure it works. So let's test it first. So I'll do a new build. So build and run. And again, this is, you might think this is like, Tom, it's going to work. Everything else worked. Test it. Don't take anything for granted. When you program, always must test. If you don't test in your platform, again, you might see some weird discrepancies, and then you have to do some troubleshooting. Chances are, though, I'm pretty confident it's going to be okay because it worked in the simulator. But it doesn't mean just because it works in the simulator that's always going to work. I'll notice I also took my debugging off because I don't need to know that it's a collision. I've already surpassed that. I know it's going to be a collision. I know it's going to work because I've tested it in the previous version, right? And one day when it does. So the other thing that I want to talk about next is, because it looks like we're doing well, is I want to add sounds, right? I want to make it so that when I collide with my objects, it makes noises, right? To give the user feedback, because noise and feedback for the user is one of the best things about playing a game, right? It gives the user instant, kind of gratification, and also it makes them feel bad when they lose, right? So I kind of want this idea that's like, you hear, it's going to be like an explosion, right? And then you're going to go, yay, when you cross over the island, right? That's all I really want to hear. And I also want to have some engine noise from the plane to make it sound like it's actually flying, right? So some basic things. By the way, I've done this many times before. So, and this isn't my stuff. This is something that I have to give some props up to the guy that that wrote the original book that I took it from. I think his name is Andy Harris, and he was the one that came up with MailPilot. But I've been using it ever since 2011, which is pretty cool. The idea that props behind it, right? And this is, like I said, my hello world for. I just lost life again. I gained some health. I gained some. Sorry, gained some stuff. So yeah, they're coming down fast and furious here, right? And I'm pretty good, but I lost another life. See, the game is pretty challenging with 3 clouds. But I want to put it in there so that way you can see what, you know, this idea, almost dead. And, you know, I'm not being careful. I should be way more careful in this. When I play this game, I play this main, I'm dead. Oh, I'm not. That's pretty cool. So, oh, for sure, no. Hiding. I'm hiding on the edges of the screen, right? And to prevent that, by the way, you can make, oh, that dead now. But I made it 1,400 points before I died. So it's pretty cool. So it works on live. This is great. So I'm going to basically go back to Unity. I'm going to save my scenes. I'm going to save my project. I'm going to exit out of Unity. And I'm going to put it up on GitHub for you guys so you have what I have. So again, I'm going to kick off my folders. I'm going to go to my Unity projects. I'm going to go to my mail pilot. And just to show you this again, I'm going to keep showing you this, so hopefully you'll be able to do GitHub properly. So I'm going to CD to the folder, right? And then when I'm there, I'm going to say git add dot, which adds everything that I put into my project just now. And once it's done, I'm going to say git commit. I'm going to name my snapshot -m for message, and the commit message is going to be added a simple UI. And then I'm going to say git push to the origin remote into the master branch. This should push everything up onto GitHub. My last time it was about 58 megs. Let's see how big it is now when I added sounds, added user interface. All I did was add a user interface element and a little bit more script. So I went from 58 to 64. Now you're like, wait, where did this like 5 megs come from or more, right? For like UI. Because there's a canvas system, there's an event system, there's all kinds of stuff that we just added in, right? All right, cool. So that's this part. Let's go back into Unity. Please stop me if you don't understand something, because you need to know this for your game. And if I do run a test, like I may run a test around week 7, so not this week or maybe after the break, when you guys come back from break, if everything goes normal, right? Then we'll run a little test after the break just to test you guys on the stuff I've talked about today, so it's not going to go to waste. If I do run a test, it'll be worth like 10% of your final grade, so nothing too crazy, but it'll be based on exactly this stuff that I'm showing you. So I may get you to recreate some other kind of game at midterm, or just around midterm after you've done your presentations. You do your presentations, and then next week after that, we do a little test. All right, so here we go. Now, how do I get sounds going? Okay, well, there's a couple things that I have to consider. What is going to register the sound hits? When am I going to do that? Well, we know that we're sending signals, messages, that there is a hit. I'm sending a message from my player controller to my game controller every time, right? So theoretically, my sounds could be all on my game controller, which is where they should reside. They shouldn't be part of the objects, right? The object should just be movement, and they should have their own logic, but not sounds. Sounds should be theoretically part of the game controller, the collision system, right? Now, unfortunately, the collision system is part of the player object, right? So I could put them on the player object, because the player object is recording when the collision happens. But it's also recording when the collision happens when I get points. So really what I can do is when I'm setting the score or the lives, I can register the sound. Okay? Let's try this out. So in my game controller object, I want to add some sounds. So I want to add something called, if I go to audio, notice there's an audio option. There is an audio listener. There's always one audio listener in the scene. It's part of the camera. If you don't have an audio listener, you can't hear sounds, right? But audio source is what I want, audio source. If I click audio source, you can see that I have a couple of options. One is an audio clip, and one is output. If I want to output this to the mixer, so I can adjust sounds. I'm not going to adjust sounds. We'll optimize sounds another day, right? For now, though, I have my sounds inside an audio file. So here's my audio assets. I've given you this. I'm going to drag and drop the engine sound of the plane first. So I'm going to take my engine sound, and I'm going to drag and drop it into my audio clip. And I want this to play on awake. So as soon as my game starts, you're going to hear my engine sound. And I want it to loop. As long as my game is playing, my plane is still up, my plane is still going, my engine sound is going to play. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit because I know my audio sound for my plane is pretty loud. So I'm going to turn it to about half the sound volume. So I'm going to go 0.5. Pretty loud. Right, let's play it and see if it works. So when my game starts, I should hear sounds. Okay, that's still pretty darn loud, I think. So I'm going to turn that right down because I want it to be kind of in a background. When you do background music, also do this. Reduce that sound right down. You don't want it to be overpowering for the game. That's better. Okay, so I got some points, right? Okay, cool. So I've got this first audio sound, right? And I want to add some other ones. Now, there's another way to do it. I don't have to add audio sources. I can also just drag and drop from the audio side into my components. I want, for example, to make the thunder sound. So I want to drag that into my component as well. So can I do it this way? So I want to drag and drop my audio clip. I used to be able to do it. I used to be able to just do it right like this, and then good to go. Or onto the game controller itself. I think I can do this too. Nope. No, it looks like they've changed it. So let's go back to audio and add another audio source. So I got a second audio source. Oh man, what's going on here? And here's my my thunder sound. I'm going to put that in there. But my thunder sound, I do not want to play on awake. I only want to play my thunder sound when I get hit by a cloud. And I want to turn this right down too. I want to make this the sound 0.5. Because I know it's pretty loud. Same thing with my the audio source that is my sound when I cross over an island, right? So here's my yay sound, and I'm going to go and put my yay sound in my audio source as well. I don't want it to play on awake, and I definitely want to turn this down to 0.5 for now, just to see what that is. Okay, cool. So I've got my 3 audio sources. Oh man, what the heck? How do I make a reference to my audio sources? Because I have my audio sources, right? And I want to use my script. How the heck do I make my stuff? And what do I do here? Well, the smart thing to do is wherever the script stuff is, move it down. Move it down. So that way my audio source registered before my clip. So I'm just going to move this down. Move this down. Keep moving it down. You can see that I'm going to move my whole script down so that it's below my audio sources for a reason, because I want to put all my components together. I'm grouping stuff too. And my custom controller script, this one here, I definitely want to put above my game controller. So I'm going to move that down too. Just realign stuff, right? So move it down. Move it down. Don't delete it by accident. So there's my audio source, right? My audio source is here, my script down here. Okay. Easiest way to do this is drag and drop within each other's audio source, within the script itself, within the object. How do I do that? I got to make references to each of the audio sources inside my script and drag and drop from the audio sources themselves inside the script. So let me show you how to do this inside the game object. So back to my script. Back to my script. I'm going to go to my game controller. And in the top here, in my where I have my public fields, I'm going to add a couple of more fields. So now, again, you can change the way this goes, but I definitely want them to come in before my clouds. You can make them come in before everything else. It doesn't really matter the order, but you may want to organize this later. So I'm going to say public, right? And it's going to be called audio source. Audio source. Come on, man, control space. Audio source. There it is. A public audio source, which I'm going to call, in this particular case, this clip, right, is going to be the yay sound or the thunder sound. So we'll call it thunder sound, right? And public audio source, and we'll make this the yay sound. We have 2 sounds. The other one, that's the engine sound, being played automatically, right? But these 2 I want to get a reference to. So as soon as I've done this, let's go back to my game object, my game controller, and you're going to see a couple spaces like we did last time. There's the thunder sound, there's the yay sound. Now, this is the challenging part. So here's my thunder sound, right? And I want to pull this thunder sound, my audio source, right, from here somehow into here, right? So can I do this? So here's my thunder source. Let's try this out. Can I make a reference to it this way? No. How about if I take the game controller itself from the hierarchy and pull it in? Will that be good? Well, no, because I don't know which one it is, right? So this is a nice idea, right? This is a nice idea, but I want to be able to kind of signify which one it is. I don't know which one I pulled in. Which one do you think it took? The top one, this one, which is the engine sound. So it's going to play the engine sound every time I hit a cloud. That's not good. So nice idea, but I want to be able to create something else. So this is, I could have done this. And if I try and pull it down, like if I try and go, you know, my audio source, as an example, is the engine sound. I could try and do that. I could try and do the actual engine sound and stuff, but I want to make a reference to this audio source. So this thing here, this audio source. See, game controller audio source. And if I scroll down, I want to kind of go down here and then do this. See that? Let's make it wider. So let's try this again. So whereas that's the engine sound, right? But I could also do the same thing with my other sounds. So if I take my audio source, if I go right over the actual object itself, I know it's pretty long, right? Let me just make this a little shorter so you can see it too. I'm going to grab this thing and I'm going to scroll with my mouse at the same time. I'm going to grab it over here and put it on top of that. There we go. And that's my thunder sound. Okay, let's see if I can do this again. And I'm going to go down here and see, grab this thing and scroll down and put it in here. Like dragging within. Now it says audio source in here, but I've dragged different audio sources in there by dragging and dropping. All right? We're going to test in a second. Okay, back to this. Now that I have references to some kind of audio source, we don't know if they're right. Let's see if we can play them when we set them. So down in here, way back. But again, there's more than one way to do this. I'm just doing it the very simple way. We can also do it by code, making a reference to the code, to the audio source, by manually getting a reference. Well, let's see if this works. All right, so every time I set the score, I also want to make a sound. So down in here, when I set the score, I want to make the yay sound happen. So I'm going to say this dot yay sound dot play. I want to play the yay sound. Yay! Right? And I want to do the same thing with my thunder sound. So I'll say this dot play sound thunder sound dot play. And that'll play. The play action will just play the sound that I want to make. All right, let's see if this works. So I'll run it.
Yay.
Oh man.
Yay. 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 Yay.
Okay. Wow. Wait a minute. It played right away. Yeah, like what? Let's try this again. Look, it kind of played on awake, which is not what I wanted. Look.
Yay. Yay.
Why did it do that? I didn't ask it to. I pulled this in. Play on awake is no. I didn't want that, right? And play on awake down here is not wrong, and the volume didn't even register. It was like really loud. Well, this is because what happens is when I'm just playing a sound, and yes, I have access to this stuff, but it doesn't remember because the way I've done this thing, I've dragged and dropped the sounds in here. So I need to do some. So once I make this player transform, my sound, my audio sources happen, right? Which is I get my audio sources here. I need to do something in my start method. So in my start method, is there a way of turning the audio source down or controlling it somehow? Let's see if that's possible. So right at the beginning, before I do anything else, I'm going to say this dot, I'll say thunder sound dot, and let's see what else we can do. We have flip, the Doppler level, bypass effects, right? Is playing, right? I have play, I have pause, right? I have play on awake, right? So if I did say play on awake, right? And I can say, just to make sure, it's equal to false. And I'll say this dot, see if this worked first. My gay sound dot play on awake is equal to false. Let's see if that has any effect whatsoever. And back to this. Right. No. Hear me out. There's reasons for all this stuff, right? So remember, what I've done is, even though I've got this engine and it plays on awake and loops, this one here, I want to activate it only when I want to. Now, it'll activate for after the first part, but I got a problem playing this thing. It always automatically plays as soon as I engage it. Okay, so that didn't work. This plain awake false, somehow when I play it for the first time, when I instantiate it here, in this part right here, I have a problem. Okay, so this is not wrong. How about pause? Can I pause the sound? Because just to show you some other options, right? So sound dot pause or stop. Maybe is there a stop sound? Right, I want to stop the sound. I don't want to have any sound play. Right? I don't want to pause it. I want to stop the sound from the very beginning, so it doesn't start playing. Right? And again, bear with me. That's why I want to show you the couple ways to do this thing so that you'll see that there's issues, there's reasons why we do certain things the way we do it. Right, good, huh? Didn't do a damn thing. So what's really happening? Why? Let's troubleshoot a little bit. Why? First of all, am I getting any errors in the console? No, right? The reason why this is happening is because as soon as I instantiate those objects and I pull them in as references, they're new objects that are instantiated. I have control over them and everything else, right? But it's almost like I'm pulling in sound clips and I have no control. As soon as I pull them in, they play because I'm making references to them. So this isn't the right thing to do. This isn't the right thing to do. I got to make a reference to the objects I've already put into play, right? And I can't, it's not so easy to do it this way because of this issue that I'm getting. It's almost like I'm instantiating two objects. Just to show you in real-time play, one more time. Look what's happening down here. I'm getting these game controllers, and then I've got these audio objects that are in play, right? So 3 cloud objects, and I've got no collision, but I'm registering a collision anyway. Okay, let's go back. Let's see what happens now. So, well, this is the reason. Look, I'm setting the score and I'm setting the lives right here. Take a look, guys. And this is why it's happening. It's not this the problem. It's my code, right? My code is setting this up, right? For the first time. So when I reset, what I want is for it not to play the sound, right? So I'm going to have to do one of these. So dot underscore score, when I set it up, is equal to 0. And just from the beginning. But then I'm going to have a problem, right? Because my score label also has to be set up from the beginning, right? So I have to do something different in the beginning, the first stretch, if I do it this way. Okay, what else what can I do? I could. The score is greater than 0, but that means what happens when it's 0? I don't want to play the sound because I want to do something else, right? And what about if the score is my lives are less than 0, right? Or at 0. Do I want to play the sound anymore? Or if it's 5, if my lives are 5, but that means what if there's a pickup in the future that gives me lives? So I got to like think about that. That'll mess me up, right? What's another way to do it? So I want to send another thing that gives me the ability to play sounds. It's pretty simple. I got to set my set score and set lives differently. So don't do this. Don't do this. I just want to set my, I want to set my objects down here to have another thing. When I set the score, not only am I setting the score, but I'm passing in a Boolean is play sound, right? And which is a type of Boolean, right? Here we go. Watch this now. This is the other thing we could do. By the way, this is not the optimal solution, but hey, we're hacks and we're trying to make this work. So if this is true, if play sound is true, guys don't. So I can say something like if play sound and good, you're good on you, right, kind of thing. So X, do this. By the way, in the past, I've done it totally different because I had a different setup completely. If play sound, but we're trying different things. That's if I made the same recordings over and over again. Okay, cool. So I've got this, but now that I've got this in there, then when I do my collision checking, right, which is here, when I actually set the score here, I got to set some values. I'm going to say false. I don't want to play this. I don't want to play the sound here. False, because my sound is being played in my game object, my game controller, not anywhere else. The other thing is that this is happening here, but I got to make sure that my player object, my player controller, which is sending messages there, also has that in there. So I'm going to say this, and then I want to make the sound in this case, right? I want to make the sound. So I want to pass sounds in from my player controller to my my game controller. Okay, now it shouldn't make that sound anymore. Let's try this out. So play. And only when I hit.
Yay. Yay.
I'm almost dead.
Yay. Yay.
Ah, I can cheat in simulator mode. Oh.
Yay.
Whoa. Right?
Yay.
How about when I do this? Now that I got this going, wait, I'll die, but hold on a second. How about if I do this? If I see an island, can I skip over it a couple times, like go back and forth like this?
Yay.
No, that didn't work.
Yay.
I can do this will work, but this.
Yay.
Oh, I did it one time, right? So.
Yay. Yay. Yay.
See, these are issues. These are issues, right? Because if I can figure it out, the player will figure it out, and he'll try and cheat, right? Because that's a cheat, right? That's a way of getting more stuff. It shouldn't give you more lives. You get one life from that thing, and then it goes away. So how do I deal with that? Well, I can't pop the island out of existence, but wouldn't it be nice if the island had some kind of your mail pilot? You're picking up mail, right? Like some kind of mail object that I pick, or coins, whatever. There's a coin, some kind of animated coin that's on top of that thing. So when I pick up the coin, I don't collide with the island. I collide with the coin. When I pick it up, it goes away. Then I can't get more points, right? So that's one thing I could do. So we did define some bugs, but now, hey, our sounds work. Let's see if this works in deployment. So I'm going to go File, Build, and Run. So we've almost got a fully working game, almost. What's missing? Start screen and an end screen. And I got to show you that today, too. So my start screen is me moving from one scene to the other. I got to have a start screen that says Mail Pilot, welcome to Mail Pilot, plus start. I have a button. And it's going to take me from that start to the next scene. And when I'm done, it's going to take me to my game over screen. And my game over screen is going to send me back to my play to play my game. Right? Or end the game, stop the game. Right? And then my game is complete. All right, but for the first version, my first version, without any kind of shooties, I only have 3 clouds. I don't have other kinds of enemies that come in. I don't have any animation. I don't have any other particle effects. I don't have any screen shake. I don't have anything that makes the game sexy or cool, right? Just avoiding clouds, right? And that's we can talk. We're going to continue talking about this until we're going to come to a point where we're going to stop talking about Mail Pilot, and then we're going to make another game. And the other game I'm going to try and make with you guys is a platformer, right? Where we're going to add some physics. That's the next part of the game I want to make, right? Now, it's not going to help for the people making a tank game, because the tank game is a top-down 2D kind of game, right? But stuff I've shown you already is almost, you've got everything you can do. But we also need some other things. Input has to change. I got to show you different inputs. You can put in a game controller if you want to use a game controller. And you can also move with your keyboard as opposed to your mouse. Because now the mouse makes this game, the mouse makes this game super easy, right? I mean, literally, I can cheat. I can go, whoop, move my mouse back and forth really quickly. But maybe how would it work with keyboard? Can I engage keyboard controls instead, or alongside of everything? So all these extra things I got to talk about. All right, let's see if this works now. So we're good. Look, it's working on the web.
Yay.
Right, all the same stuff.
Yay.
This is pretty cool, man, and it's pretty fast. It's hard to cheat now. Let's see if I can live.
Yay.
No. Yay. I want to live. I want to get a high score. Wait, that's another thing I can add in, a high score, right? Wait, how do I keep high score?
Yay. 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 Yay.
Oh.
Yay.
No.
Yay. Yay.
I wasn't going to go for that one. Oh, okay, dead. All right, so you know, you can see that this is like, you know, challenging game. It's not so easy to play. Maybe 3 clouds is too many, right? For the first level, maybe I only make 1 cloud, show them what to do, maybe give some, and especially if I want to give some instructions to the player, I could do that. I can say, you know, avoid clouds, right? And I can pause the game while you know, when you first play, like almost like a tutorial level, right? Avoid clouds, pick up mail, right? When I have the mail there, my mail mechanic, which I don't have there yet, right? These are all, this is like what would look like, this right here, guys, is what my first playable would look like, right? My first playable is here, right? I'm already done my first playable a couple weeks before you, right? It's okay though, because I got lots to do, right? I got lots before I get to my alpha release. My alpha release, if I was going to make Mailpilot Alpha, I want to add in some other things. This is like basic gameplay. It doesn't have any form of a level. I don't have any challenge. Maybe it's too hard. You know, lots of stuff going on. Okay, let's save this thing. So we're going to save scene. Oh, file, save scene. File, save project. We're going to close out of Unity. And I'll put this up on GitHub too. So again, I got this already open. So I'm going to go clear, hit add dot. Again, I'm out of Unity to do this. If you do it within Unity, you'll have all these meta files and that are locked, and you can't do this. Git commit -m, and I'll say, that's annoying. And I'll say added sounds, right? And then git push origin master, and we're good to go. That'll put everything up on GitHub. Okay, so all we added was sounds. We had like 64 megs or something like that last time. Let's see how much the sound stuff added in. All I did was make a minor update to my script, but I did add and engage sounds. It's about the same, 64.5, 64.9. Cool. So our game is up on GitHub, and we're ready to continue. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. All right, so we've made sounds, but we die when we go to, you know, we go to 0. I want it to go to a game over screen. Okay, when I go to 0 life. Okay, and I also, when I go to 0 life, or when I stop playing, I want to also keep track of my high score somehow. So I need a high score mechanic to be in there as well. All right, now there's ways of doing it with one scene, right? Where I overlay labels that are hidden, and then I only show the label when the game is on, okay? But I don't want to show you that. I want to show you 3 screens with more control, like a menu scene, the play scene, and the game over scene. I want to be able to show you those things and move from one scene to the other. That's more, that's better for you guys, especially if you're going to do 3D in game programming too, if you guys are in the game program. right? Okay, so we've got this one scene, main. Cool. Strategies. What should I do? Should I make a brand new scene and have to set up the camera? I have to set up the game controller. I got to set up all that stuff again. Should I do all that? Or copy the scene and remove things from the scene? That might be easier for me, right? Remove things from the scene is easier than making a scene from scratch, right? So let's do it that way. So I'm going to go back to my scenes. I see I have main, and I'm going to duplicate this scene. Now, notice there is no duplicate button here. But I have the ability in my edit, sorry, I know it can drop down, to do this duplicate with Command D or Control D for you. I can also copy and paste, but let's just duplicate it by just pressing the Command D or Control D on the Windows machine. So again, I'm here, Command D. I've duplicated my scene. And now let's rename this scene. Instead of main, right? Let's rename this scene. Oh, there it is. Rename the scene start. This is my start scene. And let's duplicate the scene. Again, Shift D or Command D. And let's duplicate this and call it end or game over. So I've got my end scene, my start screen, and everything else. Now, let's go to my end scene. The only way to get there is if I double click on start. Now I'm in my start scene. Okay, things I don't need. Do I need the player object in my start scene? Guys? Do I need my player object in my start scene? No. So this is gone. Do I need my island in my start scene? No. Okay. My canvas I need, right? Remember, even though it's the same stuff, it's actually a different scene, so it has different things, right? My game controller, oh boy. I have cloud number here. How many clouds do I want on my scene? Okay. So I don't want any clouds. And, what happened here? My player and my island, right? My player and my island have some issues, right? Hey, curious, do I even need a game controller scene right now? No, right? Because my game controller should only be there if I have a game. I'm not playing a game right now. I'm in my start menu. So let's just get rid of it. Delete. Maybe I should have that because my ocean might be a good backdrop, right? I don't need my score and my lives, but I need some kind of label that says start, like, play, a mail pilot or just mail pilot. So my score label, I'm just going to change one of these. Remember, it's easier to change. I don't want to make this, I don't want to tag this. I want to make this untagged now. But in my score label, I'm just going to call this the welcome label, or the is welcome. And instead of score being 999, I want to call this just mail pilot. My mail pilot. I want to get rid of my lives label because I don't need that right now. Right? And I want to move my mail pilot thing to the middle of my screen. And I want to set my position to 0, 0. Right? Because that makes my mail pilot come up in the middle, right? Now what I want to do is I want to move it up a little bit. Okay, and I'll tell you the exact numbers in a second. I also want to center it. And I want to make this way bigger. Like maybe, like I'm sitting at 30 or 40. Let's make it like 60 or something like, or even bigger than that. So make it 60. It's not that big. That's the height, sorry. I meant to make this must be 70 or 100. Let's make it 70. Let's make my text size, my font size 60. And let's make my width to make it fit. I'll make it the size of my whole screen. So my width will be like 640 pixels. Right? And now when I center it, because it's centered, it'll appear right in the middle. Now, if this isn't big enough, and maybe it's not, let's make it 80. And if it's 80, this has got to be like 90 or 100. Let's just make this 100. Oh, that's better. I like that. Way nicer. Really, really big. And then some kind of button, right? that gets me from one scene to the other. I want to have a button that does that. Okay. All right, well, let's add a button. How do I do that? So in my canvas, I right click and I want to add a UI element, and I can put in a button. Here's my button. By the way, this is not kind of buttons that are customized or anything. I can also want to center the button like we did. And I want to make this button a start button. Okay, so for now, I'm not going to put any other graphics. I'm just going to make my background color for the button yellow. So kind of a yellow button. And I'll make the text inside the button. The buttons are interesting because they have some kind of object on the outside and then some kind of text on the inside, right? So here's my text on the inside. And we're going to call this the start label. Notice like when I go in there, I can name the text of the button start label. Here's my start label. And I'm going to change this from button to start, right? I don't want to use this ugly font. I want to use my custom fonts. I'm going to go to Fonts, grab Doc51, and pull it into my fonts. And I want this to be bigger because it's too small. So again, I'm going to go for something like a 30. It means my button has to be wider. My button itself, my label itself has to be wider. But my button is the size of my button has to be actually bigger too, right? And notice I can actually size my button this way, but it doesn't change anything, right? What I need to do is actually change the size of my object up here. So here's max and min, here's the anchors, rotation, and here's scale. So what I want to do is I want to increase it across the y-axis, right? But man, how come I can't see my button? What do I do? Well, because this is the difference between this. There's an object here, and there's an object here. So let me just undo that change, right? So here's my start label, and here's my button itself. My button I can resize to make it bigger, right? Here's my button resize. So that's what this does. But my start label itself, I want to make that bigger, right? Because that is going to have a size. So there's right bottom. This is the actual object here, right? But I want to make my button big enough to hold my 30-point text, right? My 30-point text, and wide enough too, because my button label is pretty good. If I keep making this bigger, let's say I make it 2 times as large, right? Or even 5 times as large, right? This is the button. This is the actual start button itself. So button, start button. Like you can see, you can't see the outline, but it's way out here, right? My button is the actual size of my button. So this is the size of my button, this thing, right? I'm just showing you the UI so you understand how this all works. Okay. And by the way, my target graphic is my button image. I can have my own button image in here as well. I'm just trying to work with my start label right now so you can see what's happening. So 30-point font, line spacing is 1. Best fit. If I click best fit, right, it's way skewed. And if I go back to my size, which would be 1, because I'm just skewing my button, right? This is best fit. And you can also see that I want to size it inside, right? But it's way up here. So there's kind of an offset, right? So my anchors for my button, if you notice, I can put this in the middle, right? Because it has its own anchors. Hey, and look, here's my height, finally, of my start label, which I want to make something like, if it's 30, it's got to be something like 50. Maybe I can move it down to kind of fit inside there, right? If I actually take away best fit, it'll actually be the size I want, right? There it is. But the button, this button is too wide and not tall enough. So now I'm going to go back to the button itself, and I'm going to move it up higher. So I'm just going to make it the scale bigger. So I'm going to click on the scale button right here. I'm going to scale it up just a touch. When I do this, I actually stretch the button. So I don't want to do that. So the height of the button has to be like 50 as well. There we go. But the button is too wide. I want to make this a little bit narrower. So let's make the button, let's say 140, maybe even 130, maybe even 120. There we go. That's kind of a good size button. How does this look in the game? It looks like this. Start. Cool, I have a button. And when I play the scene, that's also good to do. It looks like this, right? Now what I want to do is when I click on the button, you can see that it also automatically has click effects. When I click on the button, and when I click on the button, I want to transport to the next scene to start the game. All right, how do I do that? Well, this is the great thing. First of all, let's name this button Start Button. There it is. And down on the bottom here, right where I have my button, I have this thing, this event schedule right here. See down here where it says on click? A certain function that I have, okay? Oh man, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Function? I ain't got no function. What am I going to do, right? Because I need some script to make things happen. Okay. Can I add a script to the button? Let's try that. So start button script. Let's go back to scripts. Let's make a new button, make a new script. We'll call this the start button script. There it is. And I'll go to my start button and I'll minimize all this stuff because I don't care about it anymore for now. Whoa, there's the button script. But that's not the script I want. I want the start button script, my own start button script. Can I pull this? Is it possible to pull this in? Yeah, it is. Here's my start button script. Great. If I double click it, it's mono behavior. I don't care about this stuff, right? But what I do want to make together, put together is something called on. So a void, some kind of public void, right? It has to be public, and it's going to be called on button click. Okay, I'm going to make my own public void on button click event. So when my button click happens, I want something to happen to my thing, right? So this is where I want to have my button click. For now, I'm just going to do a debug.log so I can know that it happens. Button clicked. Start button clicked. Start button clicked. There we go. Oops. There we go. Wonderful. Okay. And now in my start button itself, not here, my button script where it says script, I got to scroll down to this area where it says on click and press plus. And now you can see that I need some kind of script to connect to it. And there's the start button itself. You can actually target whatever you like. Here's my start button. And now I should be able to pull down the function that makes sense. If I go to my start button scripts, right, I should have on button click. See that? There's my on button click. It's got to be public in order for me to see that. Cool. So it's going to handle my on button click event. That's what it's doing here. Save and then press play. A little bit tricky, but if I go here and I click start, I see my start button was clicked on the bottom. And that's the first step. Does my button work? It does. Cool. Now, what I wanted to do is change scenes. I need to go back into my start button script. Right, here's my start button script. I could have put in my start button. I could have made this start button controller. I could have if I wanted to, but I left it as is. All right, now what do I want to do? I need to be able to switch scenes. And for this, if I go Unity Engine.scene management, I need to put that in there. Little piece of a using statement I have to use, scene management, right, which is different than Unity Engine itself. And what I want to do, instead of pressing this button, I want to say something like this. I want to say scene management, scene manager, right? And I want to go to my next scene. I want to load scene, right? And the name of my scene is what I want to load. Notice my scene name, right? In this case it's called main. That's what I called it, main. But the only way this will work, this load scene, right, for me to go from one scene to the other is if I've registered my scenes in my my build. So if I go back to this, and if I go to File, Build Settings, notice that there's one scene in here called Main. I want to put the other scenes in here as well, and I want to put them in order because this is how they'll appear in the game. So I want to put, going back to scenes, I want to pull in Main for my start. Sorry, let me put my start in there. Start. And let's pull my main below my start. There we go. And then below my start, below my main is my end. So worst case, this is how it's going to be: start, main, and end. And that's what the scenes are called. If you don't put them in here, you cannot use your scene manager with a fancy name. You need to load up your scenes first. Okay. Cool. So I've got my scene. It's called main. And I got another one called start. And I want to go, when I click on this, I want to teleport myself to the start, to my main scene. Let's see if I can do this. So play. I'm here, and then start.
Yay. Yay.
Cool. Now, are you guys good with that? So I've switched scenes. I've got my main scene and my start scene. Now I want my game over scene. My game over scene is going to happen when my score reaches a level of 0. When my score is 0, it's going to trigger me going to my end scene. Let's look at my end scene first. Let's set up my end scene before I do that. So here's my end scene. Oh man, it's got everything that I had before. Okay, question. Do I need my player? No. Okay, question. Do I need my island? No. Do I need this game controller? No. But maybe if I want to keep track of my high score and all that stuff, you know, that might be something else. For now, let's get rid of it. Cool. So I got my main camera, my ocean, my canvas with a couple of labels. And I want to be able to communicate between scenes, which I haven't been able to do. But for now, all I want is two things. I want a button to take me back. Wait a minute. I want a button to take me back. I already have a button and a label with a thing with all this stuff. I copied the wrong scene. I should have copied the start scene and make my end scene and just change it to make game over instead of mail pilot. Let's do that. So I'm going to get rid of this thing and go back to my start. No. And then get rid of my end scene. So I'm going to delete my end scene for now. And go here and duplicate my scene. Change this to end. Right? I'm in my end scene. Yay. Right? And now I'm going to change this thing here in my canvas. Instead of my welcome label, I'll rename this thing to my game over label, just to be clear. And in my start button, we'll call it the restart button. So we'll call it restart button. There we go. And then instead of my start label, it'll say game over, game, or restart, restart. That's going to be a little bigger, this button. And this will be my restart label, which will have to make this a bigger button. So button itself, the Rect Transform of the button, instead of 120, we'll make it 140. So right, restart. And I'm going to have a different script, right? Because it can't be this. My script has to be different. It can't be the start button script anymore. So I'm going to have to get rid of it. So let's get rid of this one. Move. And we'll make another one. Create C# script. And we'll call it the restart button script. Now, there's another way to do this where you can detect which scene you're in, and your start button or your button script will actually detect which scene it is, and depending on the scene, it'll go to the other scene. This way, just keep it clean with a different script. So here's my restart button. I'll hide this thing. I'll move my script back in here. Right, so my restart button script, move that to the bottom. There it is, right? And in my restart button script, I'll do a similar thing. I don't need any of this for now. I want to make a new public method that returns void called on restart button. You can name it whatever you want, by the way, right? And when I do that, I also need reference to my scene manager using Unity engine.scene management. Scene management. There we go. And then I'm going to say my scene manager is going to take us back to my main screen, right? So I'm going to say scene manager load scene, and then it's going to take me back to main. Both go back to main. That's why I probably could have used the same screen, but I could. The reason why I made two different scripts, which I didn't have to, is I can do other things in here, which we'll do. Right now, not going to do anything new. So I'm preparing for the future. Okay, so here's my restart button script and my start button script. They're totally separate. Now I got to prepare for this by going down in here, and on click, I got to change the function. So I'm going to use the restart button, and then that's me. In my object itself, in my button, I'm going to go down here and choose my restart on restart if it's here. And I don't see it. Why do I not? Game object. Oh, here it is. I'll be okay. Haha. There we go. So restart button script is done. And this should take us to restart. Let's try this again. Instead of mail pilot, it should say game over. How about them apples? It shouldn't say mail pilot anymore, right? So say game over here. Game over. Right? Nice and neat. And press play. So I'll test the scene out. That's good. Game over. And I'm going to go to I'm going to start with my first screen. Take care. I'm going to go to my my build settings. Make sure that scene is back in there. It's deleted. Let's add that scene back in because I deleted my end scene and I had to redo it. So it's my end scene. And let's just get rid of that. There we go. Start, main, and end. Save. Go back in here. And I'm going to start with my start screen. So let's play the whole game now, right? So mail pilot, play. Right? I'm going to click start. Play the game.
Yay. Yay.
Oh, man.
Yay.
That's a cheat because they're going really super slow in my simulator.
Yay.
Right?
Yay.
I'm doing well.
Yay.
Oh, I'm not dying. I'm not taking a risk. Oh, there's a good one.
Yay.
That was good timing for it to slow down like that.
Yay.
But let's say I die. Oh,
Yay.
wait. What did we forget to do? We have to make it so that when I go to 0, it goes to the next screen. Let's fix that. So I'm going to go to my, so where would I do that? So I've got my start scene. Let's go to my main scene. So I'm going to double click main now. Notice there's different scenes, right, with different kinds of objects in the scene. If I go to my my game controller, and if I look at my game controller script, here's my game controller script, I can see that I'm initializing my lives. Whatever my lives are, I take it and I take a life, whatever the lives is. I keep on subtracting lives. And then I keep doing this. I play the thunder sound. But what if lives become really low, right? So in my set lives method, I got to check to see what my lives are. And I can use my get lives to do that. So say if this dot get lives, right? is less than or equal to 0. Why less than or equal to 0? Because maybe I get hit by 2 clouds at the same time. I can't say equals to 0 because maybe I'll go below 0, right? If my get lives is less than or equal to 0, then I got to use my scene manager again, which means I got to initialize my scene manager up here again. Each scene needs this somewhere. It's Unity engine.scene management, right? And down where I'm doing this thing, when I'm doing my check, where I set my lives to less than or equal to 0, right? I'm going to say that scene manager dot load scene end. It's going to catapult me to the end scene. Game over, right? So that's your first playable. I'm going to fix now. Let's see if I can get this going now. Again, I'm going to go from the beginning. So I'm going to go back to my save my scene. I go back to my scenes, my start scene to play it off and play. And here we are. Play mail pilot. Die, die, die. And game over. Yes.
Wouldn't it be better to put the restart button go to start screen?
I could, but then for restarting, we're starting. Exit or exit to main. That might be better. Like menu, restart or menu, right? So in your game, you can have your button do whatever you want. But I like your thinking. I mean, in your game, maybe you want it to go back to main, so you can restart, repick your loadouts or whatever you're going to do if you're going to make a tank game, right? But if you're just making a top-down shooter, then probably you just want it to go back and restart, right? If you want to restart your level, that's different, because then it needs to retain what you were at, where in your level you're going. You have to have a spawn point for your player. There's a bunch of other things to consider, right? When we're going back there, how do I respawn at the point that I left if I just died, right?
That's where you add
Checkpoints, I can use that. I keep track. Then I have to make sure I somehow communicate from one scene to the other, which we haven't talked about. I will talk about that next week. Is sending messages, because each scene is its own container, right? So when I send a message, like my high score, I have no way of keeping track of high score right now, because once one scene is gone, in that scene, in the scene manager is also gone, including the game controller. So game controller keeps track of score. Well, guess what? That game controller is out of the window. It's gone, right? So how do I send messages back that I'm going to my start score? First of all, I got to send messages 2 ways. From my main to my end screen, I got to send that and retain data between scenes, right? And then from my game over screen to my my main scene, if I want to start from where I was. If I don't care, if I just want to restart the game and try again, right? Then I don't have to send messages the other way back. But if I want to go back, like traverse back and forth and maintain state, that's a whole different thing. That's like more work to be done. And we're not going to handle that today. Today, what I've done is I've made my first playable. My first playable for my game, Mail Pilot, is done, right? Now, let's try running it inside my platform. So File, Build and Run. Now this is going to be a little bigger, because now I have 3 scenes, right? It's going to take a little longer to do, and I'm going to have more pages, more the same page, but more scenes when I shift between pages. But it should, if everything goes well, appear exactly how I have it here. If everything doesn't go well, this will be a problem. So other questions around that? Vincent or Winston or anybody down there have any questions around this whole scene management? Have you guys learn that with Wallace at all? Going between scenes? No? Okay, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. You don't remember? Anyway, this is key. So remember, your first playable, I want what I'm showing you here, the basics here. That's what I'm looking for, very basic, right? Start my game, play my game, have my main mechanic in the game, which is flying over the islands to get points, in this case, right? The point condition to get points, the death condition to die, collisions should be working. Basic sounds would be nice, but not required, right, in your first playable, because you have lots to do from now until then, right? So this is even more than I would ask you to do in your first playable, right? But if you have at least this kind of scene management system where you're moving from one scene to the next scene, and this is the great thing about the scene manager built into Unity, maybe there's a way of using the scene management system itself to carry messages from one to the other. And there is ways of sending messages. But this is the way we have to start doing it. We have to start thinking about, how do I send messages from one scene to the other? How do I send data from one scene to the other? You'll have to do that, especially when you move from your first screen to the second screen to the third screen. You want to retain your score, as an example, and your lives. This is good. This is a good sign. So this is working. Okay. So I die. Game over. Restart.
Yay.
Restart. Right? I can play a little longer now.
Yay. Yay.
Died. Pretty bad. Died.
Yay.
Come on.
Yay.
Whoa.
Yay. Yay.
No. Come on, this is my game, man.
Yay.
There's no mouse clicks
Yay.
involved, just pure simple game. Very casual gameplay, and I died. All right, so things that are missing. I don't have a sound track at all, like in the first screen, like da 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 da, some kind of saying, and then at the end, da 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 da. Oh, too bad. Play again. That kind of thing. We need some kind of thing like that, and it's easy to create. We won't do it today, but what we could do is use Audacity or some other kind of sound generating system to create some extra sounds. Things like pickups, things like all that stuff. I'm going to continue this next week when we get together. Add some additional things to MailPilot, like some animation for the propeller, like some other things, right? And they're not that difficult. We'll talk about animation next week a little bit, basics of how to do animation. Right now, you've got the building blocks of making your game. All right, let's save this thing out of Unity. So we're going to go to, and let's just go to File, Save Scenes, File. I always try and do this, Save Project, and we're going to get exit to Unity. We're going to quit. We're going to go back to, we don't need this anymore. Basically done for the day. I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to say git add dots. Lots of stuff we just added. Now, we went from 68 megs or 65 megs. Let's see how big we are now once we added this stuff. That's annoying. Git commit -m, and we'll say we added, start and end scenes, right? Cool, clear, git, push, origin, master. That'll push everything up to the master branch. How big it grew to? 11 megs, 12 megs. It's going to be a while. 40 megs, 58. Hey, that only added like a meg for those two scenes. Like nothing, right? It's almost like the main stuff was okay, and then. All right, so that's pretty cool. We did this all very, very nicely. One thing we haven't done, which we have to explore next week as well, is this idea of GitHub Pages. So you can start doing this on your own if you're interested in doing this. When we talk about GitHub Pages, to host your own pages, right? And it gives you a little video on how to do it, as well as some step-by-step. For example, we need to create a repository that, we have to head over there, and a new repository named whatever the username is, .github.io. I have this, but I'm going to redo mine. I want to get rid of what I have there and put on MailPilot, right? Okay, where my username is your username or organization name on GitHub. Good. If the first part of the repository doesn't exactly match your username, it won't work, so make sure you get it right. So we're going to have to do that next week. The next part, what client are you using? A terminal, right? Cool. Next, clone the repository. Yay, here's my clone of the repository. Next, enter the CD project folder, right? And we're going to say, hello world. Great. Push it. Done. That's how easy it is. It's like literally that easy. Okay, but. I just don't want to use my github.io with nothing in it and just an index.html page. No. I'm going to take my build folder, the one I just made, that's using WebGL. I'm going to put it up on GitHub, right? I'm going to do it really quickly, but let's see how this goes. First of all, do I have my page? Remember, I need to have this page called whatever my username is, .github.io. In your case, it might be your organization name, .github.io, if you're working with your game, whatever your game is called, right? Well, let's try it like this, username.github.io. For now, I do have a page, but it's an old page that I haven't touched for a long time. So it's my username.github.io, which comes up with this page in a second. This one, Ceopolis World, yay! Kind of silly, right? So that's not really cool. And in fact, look, I even have my custom domain that points to it. This is my custom domain, and I point to my thing. Contact me, yay! Sure, my contact me. And you can see that I haven't touched this since 2014 because this was just a demo for one of my classes. But I want to do this stuff for my what I want to have, right? But I want to have my GitHub pages work this way. GitHub. Now I'm going to go to my, not Centennial, because Centennial is not going to play this thing, but I want to be able to use my github.io to do that, right? So I'm going to go into my own personal page. So let's go to my personal page this time. There it is. And I want to look at my repositories. Oh, there, let's go back there, this one. And you can see that I got a bunch of stuff that was in here from last time. I want to get rid of all this stuff because I haven't had a chance to do this. So what to do? So it's got to be this, ceopolis.github.io. In your case, it'll be whatever your username is. That's why I'm using this today. Next time, I'll do something different. Oh, one thing before I delete. Notice that there is a Cname file. Cname, if you have your own custom domain, you can actually point to your domain. So for example, Cname, I have to put in the name of my domain. So www.myname.com. There's ways of setting this up. I just need to remember this. That's the only thing that's going to be in my Cname file. Okay, but I need to put that in there, and it has to be in caps, Cname. Okay, the rest I don't care about. It can die, right? Not me die. I'm saying it can die. Okay, so I'm going to go back to settings, right? And I'm going to take this little repository name in here. And the way you delete a repository is I'm going to go right back into the bottom where it says danger zone and delete. So delete it. Yes, I understand the consequences. And make me log in. Now I'm going to recreate it. Okay, so I'm going to recreate this thing. So I'm going to go plus new repository, recreate it. There it is. It's public, of course, and create repository. Fantastic. Now, a little bit of web stuff. Here's my repository. It's empty. I know that inside my files, in my Unity files, I have this builds folder. Here's my builds folder right here. And I have inside of there a WebGL folder. Well, guess what? Here's my index.html. Here's my template data, and here's my build. I just need to put this data here. That means I need to create another project by pulling this folder out. So I'm going to copy it. Don't worry, I'll go over this again next week. And I'm going to go to my desktop for now, paste it. That's a really loud paste sound. There it is. And then just rename it. Oops, rename it to whatever I want. For example, Mail Pilot. There it is. Or might more appropriately, it will be github.io, right? Don't add. .github.io. I want to add it. Add it. Okay. Now that I've got this, right, I'm going to pull it into an editor like Visual Studio Code. Okay, it could be any editor you want. It could even be edit. Okay, I'm going to drag and drop it in. The only thing I need here to add into my index.html, this is my index.html, right? It's going to actually give me the title of my document. So here's my HTML, my head of my document. Here's my title. Instead of Unity WebGL Player, I can change this to whatever I want, like this. Right, so I can modify some of this stuff. This is just code. This is just web code, right? I'm not changing anything else, just this, right? And I want to add a Cname file. So I'm going to add a new file. So it's going to be called capital Cname. And inside of there is www.mycustomname.com. Save. Close. Cool. Now, I need to initialize a new Git repository here. So what I'm going to do is, I don't need this anymore. I need this part, this folder, and this, cd space, and the new folder that I'm putting in. Here, git init, git add dot, git commit -m, and then initial commit. Here. Now, I know what the repository is. It's Styliopoulos.github.io, but I want to get the information from here just to be clear. So it's github.com, Styliopoulos, styliopoulos.github.io.git. So copy this, or you can just copy these last 2 lines of code, which is the easiest one, and pump it in there. Press enter. It's 5 megs. That's how big the whole thing is. I just took the WebGL thing, right? 5 megs. Cool. Let's see if this actually did it. So I should, theoretically, be able to go to that page now, www.myname.com. And, oh, man, what the heck? How come it didn't work? Well, it takes a second. Now, my friends, if everything goes well, we should be good to go, right? With my own custom domain. So this is live. Go try it now, please. Go www.mylastname.com, please. Go. It's live, baby, right? I'm not lying. You should see it. It should be pretty darn good, right? It's a web game. It takes a second because it's being loaded, but you should see no delay, right? Yeah, that's right. It's been playing. That's what I want your game to be. So when you do your game, you're going to publish it live. People will be able to see your game, and you can use it as a portfolio piece. This is why we're doing it like this, so it can be live on your machine. Are we good to go? Any questions? GitHub.io, man. It's the easiest thing ever, and it's free. Now, I bought my own custom domain, and I recommend it. Remember I talked about this, recommending buying your own domain for your game? It's like $4 or whatever it is from GoDaddy. It doesn't cost a lot. You can call it mygame.xyz, right? There's lots of domains. And just to, not that I'm claiming that GoDaddy is the only one, but if you go to GoDaddy really quick, I'll just end with this one. GoDaddy. Go to GoDaddy. And let's say I log in, I do a search. Do a search on GoDaddy. Okay, it's detecting who I am. Let's say I'll go there with my incognito window. Hold on a second. GoDaddy. There we go. And if I type in the name, like let's say, for example, what's your name called? Winston and Friends? Your game. Spell it. ZY, ZZY, VA, ZZ.ca. What do you mean? ZY, ZZ. Right? You can see it's available for $5, right? All right, but one of these, pizza, there's also the XYZ. Remember, it's $1.49 for this one, for the XYZ ones, right? Then it becomes more expensive, yeah. Because if you go like XYZ, yeah, then it's $20 a year. Then it's $20 a year. But you can always shut it down, right? For the first year. Yeah, but you can also just not renew it, auto renew. It'll just not renew automatically. They're good, GoDaddy is pretty good. .pizza, is that what you said? Ziziva.pizza? I don't know if that's allowed, but yay, 1255. I like it. It's just huge. .pizza. This is a pizza that 12 is $12.55 anyways. But like I said, the point that I'm trying to make here is that, guys, this is easy, right? If you look at my GitHub right now, all it has is my WebGL build, a CName, and my index.html. That's it. There's nothing else in here. I could still get there by my name, my account name, .github.io, right? That's how simple it is. So I highly recommend you do that. Saved by the bell. Okay, guys, that's it for today. I'll see you guys next week. Remember, please hand in your second version of your game design documents due tonight by midnight.